Thank you. Before starting on the specific category, I want to highlight one concept based on the question I received during the break regarding when the weight that we use in open but also in the specific category. So when I say weight, we consider the maximum takeoff mass. This means that this is the weight that the drone by design can take off, used for takeoff. So the drone will have an empty weight, then you can add a number of payloads. So for example, if I have a drone that is up to 3 kilo as an empty weight, the manufacturer needs to identify what is the maximum weight of the payload that can be added to the drone. If, for example, the maximum payload is 1.2 kilos, so it will make the drone weight maximum 4.2 kilo. The drone cannot be classified C2. It needs to be classified C3 because C2, the 4 kilos, is related to the maximum takeoff mass that physically I can use in order to take off the aircraft. It's also to simplify the activity for the police or for whoever will check the activity, because so it needs to be clear. Just reading the number of the drone, that is a C3 or is a C2, and there should not be any kind of confusion that even if it's a C2, I can still use a payload such that the aircraft is flying at higher weight, lower weight. So independent of what is the current weight that you are flying at that moment, when we talk about maximum takeoff mass, is always the weight defined by the manufacturer by design. So it will be written on the documentation provided by the manufacturer. So for you, at the end, it will be transparent because it will be marked with the C2 or C3, so you don't even know that actually the real weight of the aircraft is lower than the maximum that was in the regulation. So, okay, so let's start with the specific category. What is the specific category? Whenever I want to do an operation that exceeds the limitation that I showed you in the open category, then I am in the specific category. So, for example, I said that only BVLOS operations are in the open category. So if I want to do an operation beyond visual line of sight, so long range, then I'm in the specific category. If I want to use in general a drone more than 25 kilos, I'm in the specific category. But also if I want to fly over people with a 3 kilo drone, so it's not a C1, then I am in the specific category. So you can do everything. Specific category is a very wide category when you give the flexibility to design the operation as you want. So you can almost do everything. You will see that there is then the next is the certified category, and we don't have very specific limits between the very clear limit between specific and certified category, depending on the risk, and you will see later. So in the specific category, actually, you can do a lot of operations. In this case, the minimum age for the remote pilot is 16-year-old, and also can be reduced by the member state up to 14, and will be only valid in that member state. So what is the main element of the specific category? First of all, the operator is required to identify how you want to operate. So they define what we call the CONOPS, concept of the operation, and then carry out a risk assessment. We have a methodology that is called SORA, Specific Operation Risk Assessment, and was developed by an international forum made of different competent authority. European, EASA was very active, but also US, China, Brazil, mostly all over the world. So this is just to tell you that this is also actually also on the classification between open, specific, and certified is coming from this group. So what we did, we tried to do in this international forum, so to have the first brick to have something that more or less will be used also in the other countries. even if now we are the first country, the first region in the world that transformed this proposal from this group to actual regulation, we expect that also other countries in the world will use a similar approach. So this risk assessment, SORA, that was developed by this group, we published as an acceptable means of compliance to the regulation. So you can see it on the document that for which I showed you that we have a link on the presentation. This risk assessment helps the operator to identify all elements of an operation and to identify what is the risk. To identify so the overflow area, the airspace, the operational condition, also the characteristics of the aircraft. And based on these elements, the operator, at the end of the process, will be able to define the risk level using a code called Specific Assurance and Integrity Level, called SAIL. So at the end of the process, each operation is classified from SAIL 1 to SAIL 6. So SAIL 1 and 2 means that the risk is still at low. SAIL 3 and 4, the risk is medium. 5 and 6, even if you are in the specific category, now we are talking about something that is a very high risk. So, and depending on the level of risk, you need to put in place different mitigations in terms of robustness and also in terms of type of verification that you need to use. The document will identify a number of operational safety objectives and a number of mitigations. So you will see that there are around 26 different elements. Some are covering the flight conditions, so what kind of limitation you need to put in place in order to have the operation safe. Some are covering the pilot competency, so what is the minimum competency that you need to put in place. It's also sometimes technical requirements for the drone. So at the end of the process, you will identify what kind of, for each of these operational safety objectives, what kind of robustness you need to demonstrate in order to show that your operation is safe. So then you can adapt your concept of operation and you can shape your operation in a way that best fits your need. So at the end, you will prepare the package with all the information, and then you will send the package to the competent authority that will give the authorization. And only after you have the authorization from the competent authority, you will be able to start the operation. So with part in the open category in general, you can only operate after you have an authorization by the competent authority that will be based on your proposal, on your risk assessment, on how you believe that the operation can be mitigated. So you are free to propose the best way following the structure that I showed you. Now, since in some cases the risk assessment may be complicated, especially for the small operators, we try to find some way to simplify the activity for the operators. So the first way is to develop what we call a standard scenario. So we identify, means as EASA, with the support of the member states, with the NAA, we identify some operation that fits in the low risk of the specific category, so SAIL 1 and 2. We identify so the scenario, the CONOPS, how this operation takes place. We, EASA, conduct risk assessment and identify all the mitigation measures. So we defined a list of requirements similarly to what I showed you for the open category in terms of what are the limits on the operation, what are the competencies of the pilot, the minimum requirements for the aircraft. And then we built appendices to the regulation that allow the operator to just, when they follow this operation, just declare to the competent authority that they are meeting the requirements in the regulation. And after they declare, the competent authority in exchange will send the confirmation of receipt and completeness. So I just send the declaration of authority, wait a few seconds, I hope we are talking about something that will be electronically, that they confirm that they received the document, and they just confirm that I'm using the format that is published in the regulation. So the declaration is already defined in the regulation, so I cannot use something different. I need to declare that I fully comply with the regulation, and then nothing else. I can fly without waiting for any kind of authorization or any kind of additional assessment from the competent authority. This means that maybe the competent authority, the day after, can come to me and check if I'm doing this operation in a safe way, or maybe they can come after 1 month, after 1 year. So we will then be under the oversight of the competent authority, like normal aviation organization are today. But we can do the operation almost immediately after we send the declaration. What kind of standard scenario we already have? So at this moment, the current published regulation doesn't have any standard scenario, just have the provision, and the appendix is empty. But in November last year, EASA published a proposed amendment to the regulation, and with 2 standard scenarios. The standard scenario were discussed last week at the European Commission, and we are just making some small adjustment based on the comments we received from a member state, and we expect that we'll have the final vote in the next weeks, and this regulation will be adopted by mid of this year. So let's see what are the standard scenarios. The first one is a BVLOS operation below 120 meters in urban environment using a drone up to 25 kilos. So you may remind that the maximum they can do in the open category is A2, so it's up to 4 kilos. Here we are extending at the A2 up to 25 kilos. But we have some constraint. So first of all, the operator needs to identify what we call the flight geography, so where the drones is flying, where the operation will take place. And then they need to add a 2 level of safety buffer. One is we call contingency area. So if the aircraft is going outside of the flight geography, the operator needs to put in place some what we call contingency procedures that needs to be defined by the operator in order to have the aircraft going back in the flight geography. And then another one is a ground risk buffer, so there is another layer of security. So if even if the pilot put in place the contingency procedures and the aircraft is still flying outside of the contingency area, so we'll approach the contingency buffer, the ground risk buffer, then the operator needs to put in place some procedures that need to follow by the remote pilot in order to interrupt immediately the operation. In this case, we ask that the drone will have a flight termination system, so such that the aircraft will be stopped. Now, in order to protect also the drone itself, for this kind of drone, we ask for a parachute. So we have a number of technical requirements that are imposed for drones to be operating standard channel number 1. And we decide that also these requirements will be verified through the C marking. And so we propose a new class that is called C5. So only if you are flying with a class C5, you can do this operation in the standard scenario. And the requirements for C5 are more or less the same of C3, also because we started from the C3 with some additional requirements on top, especially so this flight termination system. And the parachute in this case is not very much needed for to ensure the safety of the area, but it's more to make sure that the pilot will activate the flight termination system, because we know that from a human factor point of view, people may be not very happy to stop their drone, because then it can crash and the drone can be lost. So it's more to protect the business. We don't require from a safety point of view, because we require that all the ground risk buffer, up to the red area, needs to be controlled. So there will need to be an active verification from the operator that no uninvolved people is in the red area, maybe by fencing the area or making sure that nobody is entering in this area. So from a ground risk point of view, the operation is safe, because nobody will be up to the red area, even if the operation is concentrated in the green area. And we ask for here some training. Will be both theoretical training. So in addition to the training that I showed you for the A3, we have additional face-to-face theoretical training, and we ask also for practical training in this case. Practical training that needs to be conducted, and I will tell you later in which way. The second standard scenario instead is a BVLOS operation, beyond visual line of sight operation, still below 120 meters, in sparsely populated area, so we are talking about not in urban environment, but in area where there is no one, with a drone up to 25 kilos. So here we have two conditions. We may have the pilot that is flying by himself. So in this case, we limit the range to 1 kilometer. So will be BVLOS up to 1 kilometer. So there will be, according to the size of the drone, the remote pilot will not be able to see the drone after, I don't know, is exceeding 500 meters, 300 meters, depends on the size. So this is the dark blue BVLOS area. Then, if the operator, if the remote pilot is exceeding the VLOS range, so he's flying at a distance where he cannot see anymore the flight, we require that the pilot need to scan the sky. So you know that the aircraft is in that area, and he need to check if in that area there is another obstacle. So if he will be able to see another aircraft, because the aircraft is much bigger than the drone. So up to 1 kilometer, you will be able to see if in that area another aircraft is coming. Though in this case, you need to take control. So we have also in this case, we only accept that you can do this operation only if you have a C-mark drone, and we have a special class that is the C6. And the C6 has one special requirement that we oblige to have automatic function on the drone. Because if you are exceeding the VLOS operation, the remote pilot should not concentrate on the screen and to check how the operation is doing, because he needs to check the sky. So the drone needs to have an automatic function so that the operation is conducted automatically by the drone. So the pilot will just check that everything is okay, and in case there is a problem, immediately take control and maybe land the drone or put the drone back. And then we'll have also another requirement that it will be the geo-caging. So also in this case, the pilots will be required to identify the flight geography area, contingency buffer, ground risk buffer, and also in this case, they need to protect all the area. But we require that the drone will have an automatic function such that will not be able to go outside of this 1 kilometer in this case, or the flight geography area. Now, he can extend the operation up to 2 kilometers when he uses some visual observers. So visual observers are people that are put at the distance no more than 1 kilometer from the remote pilot. Can be more than one, so covering a circle up to 2 kilometers. And they need to be in contact with the remote pilot, and their task is to check the sky and verify if there is any obstacle that is coming close to the aircraft. So maybe they are not in direct visual line of sight of drone, but they need to have some screen, something that will tell them where the position of the drone is, so they can know that is the area, and they can check if there is something coming. And then they will inform immediately the pilot if there is some other aircraft, so the pilot will intervene. So this will allow to fly up to 2 kilometers from the remote pilot. So it's a sort of BVLOS operation, even if still we enforce so we ensure that the air risk is mitigated through someone that is looking at the sky, because we know that we still don't have an acceptable detect and avoid system. So at this moment, we don't have any alternative that having someone that is checking the sky. So these are the two standard scenarios that has been published, and I will tell you when they will be available for you. Okay, so the competency in both cases, the remote pilot needs to have his online courses in the examination, like in the open category. Then we have the additional theoretical knowledge examination provided by the competent authority, like we have in A2. And actually, if you already have already passed the exam in A2, you have some credit here. You don't need to do the full examination, but you just do the delta. And also this one will be valid for 5 years. But in addition to the theoretical knowledge, we have also here some practical knowledge. So we don't mandate to have a practical exam. We just have a practical training. So we have the concept here of the continuous training. We decided in order to give maximum flexibility and also to reuse the experience that we have in some member states here in Europe that show that this approach is working very, very well, that the training can be provided either by an entity recognized by the member state or even by another operator that already declared, that already doing some operation in the standard scenario. And in addition, this operator comply with some requirements that are very peculiar for training organization, and that for which we have another appendix in the regulation that defines exactly what they need to show. And once this operator is compliant with this kind of requirements, he will declare to the competent authority that this operator is not only doing standard scenario 1 or 2, but is also able to train other operator. Now, one of the main requirements that should be independence between who is the trainer and who is the trainee. So this means that I cannot train myself. Now, if I'm a big organization, I can have two different structures. One is the training, one is that is the operation, and then I can show that they are independent to the competent authority, and then this one, the training side can train the operation side. Otherwise, it will be a different operator. I go to the operator number X that I know that has been declared, and I do this training, and at the end, they will give me a proof of completion of this training, and then I can then start the operation. So also in this way, you can see that it's very flexible and trying to reduce as much as possible the cost, but we found that the experience showed that was very effective in several member states. And as I told you, the declarations that need to be used are defined in the regulation. So you cannot just declare based on your feeling. So you need to use the format that are in declaration. So the first one is the declaration for conducting standard scenario, in which you identify your name, what kind of drones you are using, and then you declare that you comply with all the requirements of the regulation. The second format instead is the one that is used by the operator that wants to train other operators. So in this case, you declare that you comply with the additional requirements in the appendix to the regulation for training. So very simple. Fill these two declaration, send to the competent authority. You can see that it's very difficult then to make a mistake, because few fields need to be filled. The competent authority will check that they are complete, they are the right one, and send you the confirmation, and then you can do the operation. Let's say the applicability of the standard scenario. So I told you that the adoption should be sometime, say, mid of this year. Then, since also in this case we are living on the fact that we are using drones with the C marking, so we'll not be able to have a drone with C marking immediately now. So we decide to have 18 months when the applicability then will start. So in these 18 months, the national regulation will still apply. So this means that if the national regulation already have other possibility to declare operation, then you can use it. Otherwise, you just follow the European regulation. Then, after 18 months, all operation based on declaration needs to follow the standard scenario. So it means that you need to send a declaration based on what I showed you before. So if you have a declaration based on national regulation before this date, and you already had a declaration valid based on national scenario, then this declaration will be valid for additional 24 months. So 24 months, you can have both available. But after, in that 24 months, no new declaration can be sent based on national regulation. All new needs to always be sent based on European regulation. Predefined risk assessment. So this standard scenario, I said, is only applicable if we are talking about simple, low risk operations, so only SAIL 1, SAIL 2, according to the risk assessment of SORA. But also for more risky operation, we want to find a way to simplify. So in this case, we identify another tool that we call predefined risk assessment, where also in this case, EASA with the member state will identify the operational scenario. Also in this case, EASA will carry out the risk assessment. But at the end, we'll define a package of how you can comply with the mitigation and the operational safety objective, giving you also some kind of flexibility, because here we are talking about very different kind of operations. So while in the standard scenario I showed you that we are very strict, since it's the declaration, is no verification, either you are fully compliant with what we say or you do something else. Here we want to give you some kind of flexibility. So we give you some indication of how you can simplify your approach, how you can conduct this operation, but then you still have the flexibility to propose some variation. And at the end, you still need to send an application to the competent authority. And the competent authority will review and will send the authorization. And only after the authorization you can fly. But we expect that using this kind of package, your activity will be much more reduced. You just need to follow our pre-digested, say, recipe. And also the competent authority, for them, will be much easier to assess it because they are already, we are already following a structure. So will be a much simplified way to give this authorization. The difference between the standard scenario and predefined risk assessment is that standard scenario are part of the regulation. These instead are IMC to the regulation. So we will be able to also in the future to develop very easily new predefined risk assessment. And this is something that we have in mind. We want to, in the future, to cover the vast majority of the operation in Europe to make sure that we can simplify as much as possible. But we already published the first predefined risk assessment. It is part of our MC guidance material. So this means it's already not applicable by today because we need to wait the 1st of July. But from 1st of July 2020, you can already use this predefined risk assessment. And this is covered a BVLOS operation. below 120 meters in controlled airspace over space-reported area environment with a drone up to 25 kilos. So you can see very much closer to the standard channel number 2. But the difference is that also in this case, the pilot can fly up to 1 kilometer in case he's flying by himself, using the same approach I showed you in the standard scenario. But the difference is that now you can use a range of visual observer. So you can have in theory, you can have a very long range of operation. The important is that at the end you are able to demonstrate to the competent authority that you are able to manage all your visual observers. You have very good procedures in order to make sure that there is always one person that is checking the area where the aircraft is flying. There is a very good communication among all of them, good communication with the remote pilot. So since the member state, the NA, will be able to assess your procedures now, we can allow this kind of flexibility. This is why I tell you that we are not so strict. So you will propose how many, you will propose how this will better fit your operation. And here, we do not mandate a drone with a C marking. So you can do also with a drone that is maybe built by yourself, or will be another kind of drone. But there will be some minimum technical requirements that the NAA will verify. So then it will be up to them to check that you are using a drone compliant. Maybe at the end they can check that a drone with a C5 is still good enough for doing this operation, maybe. It depends how you build your operation. So this is a very powerful tool, this PDRA, that will help you to simplify a lot. Now, at this moment, this is only the first one, but we are already working to develop some new predefined risk assessment. And we are going to publish by this year 4 more. 2 will cover exactly the 2 standard scenarios that I showed you before, because in case you want to do an operation under standard scenario, but for some reason you don't have a C-mark drone, because you have your drone that you just built by yourself. Why you cannot do the same operation? Now, we cannot allow you to do the operation on the standard scenario without a drone with a C marking through a declaration. So, but we will be able to develop a predefined risk assessment. It will be very simple predefined risk assessment in which you will show to your competent authority that you have a drone that is privately built or without C marking, but still comply with some minimum technical requirement. And then your NAA will give the authorization to fly with the same condition of the standard scenario, even if still will be under that authorization. Okay. Too much. So these are the PDA that we are developing now, so the 2 mirroring the standard channel 1 and 2. Then we are working on another PDRA, BVLOS operation below 120 meters in uncontrolled airspace over space-reported area with a drone less than 3 meters. In this case, we will not use visual observers. We'll have different kind of mitigations. And then the next one, BVLOS in restricted airspace over space-reported area with 3 meter dimensions. And so these are PDRA that will come in by the end of this year. Now, an important element will be the certification of the aircraft. So we are trying to find the right balance, you know, and to make sure that the cost of the aircraft is low enough to allow you to do operation without starting with a big investment. But then also some minimum safety level is ensured. So according to the SORA, I think you will identify what is the risk level of your drone. So you can have the 3 boundary, low, medium, and high. Let's start now for this morning for the low, medium, and high. And If the operation is classified low, then CL1 and CL2, we say that maybe will be covered by a standard scenario. So the C marking, in this case 5 and 6, maybe tomorrow there will be new standard scenario, which maybe or not new C classing, or maybe the same class will also be useful for other standard scenario. Or you may ask for an authorization to do this kind of operation in low risk to the competent authority, and then the competent authority will verify the full package. So you will say that my operation is safe because I have a drone with very good technical requirements. I have put in place some operational restriction. I have a pilot that is skilled. Maybe the pilot is very much skilled, so I don't need to have a drones with a lot of technical requirements. On the opposite, I can have a pilot that is not very much skilled because I have a drone with a lot of technical requirements. This is the powerful of this tool. So you can balance the three. And then the competent authority will give you authorization to fly with that drone. But if another operator wants to do a similar operation with the same drone, he cannot reuse the authorization given by operator number 1 because it's linked to that drone, to that operation. So the other operator needs to again send all the information to the competent authority and need to have a different authorization. We allowed, anyway, the manufacturer to apply to EASA to have a type certificate because, for example, if I want to put on the market drone and I will say my drone is already compliant with all operation in cell 1 and 2 or maybe cell 3 and 4, even if it's not mandatory, this will help the operator. So this way the operator, when they go to the competent authority, they don't need to show that, okay, my drone is compliant with technical requirements because look, so this is how they comply with requirement A, B, C. They will say, yes, an EASA certificate, so all technical requirements are done. I just concentrate on the operational and on the pilot competency. But this is an optional possibility. So we do a possibility. We don't mandate this one in the cell 1 and 2. For the medium risk, according to the SORA, the requirements. You need to show that you are complying with all the requirements only by declaring that you are complying with it, and then you need to provide some additional information to the competent authority supporting that you are compliant. But it's not required to have a third-party verification. So you don't need to show that someone checked that you are complying with these requirements. So you prepare the package, you send to the competent authority with some additional information. The competent authority will check. Maybe we may consider the additional information is not good enough. There will be some kind of negotiation, but then they will give you the authorization. So this authorization also in this case will cover the three elements. But also in this case, we want to have the manufacturer give a possibility to come to EASA and ask for the certificate. So this will help the operator to reduce the number of requirements they need to show. When we talk about high risk, you will see in SORA that high risk means that the operation needs to comply with some requirements, mitigation, operation of the objective that is a little bit more complex, and we always need to have a third-party verification. Now, according to the competency that is split between Europe and the member state, as I showed you early this morning, EASA is the competent authority for design, while the member states are the competent authority for operation and pilot competency. So this means that when you want to show that you are complying with all the objectives that are at high risk and is related to operational and to the pilot competency, either you ask to the competent authority to verify, or maybe the competent authority will identify some entity, what we qualified entities, that can do this on their behalf. They will publish who they are, so we'll go to them, and then when they approve you, you can provide the package to the competent authority. When we talk about design, since the competency is EASA, so we need to apply our regulation for initial airworthiness that is called Part 21. Maybe you may be aware. Now, Part 21 is a little bit heavy, let's say, for drones, because it was built for aircraft. Now, we also have a small aircraft, but some that in some cases can be a little bit complicated. So we are working now on reducing the level of requirements. In Part 20 will be more flexible, but actually already have some flexibility provision in Part 21 that allow us to reduce requirements to fit the operation of drones. So this means that for the high-risk operation, the type certificate or restricted type certificate will be mandatory. So the manufacturer needs to apply to EASA for the type certificate. EASA will identify what are the minimum requirements. There will be a certification process. At the end, there will be a document called type certificate that will be given to the manufacturer. And then the manufacturer can put on the market the drone, and the operator then can use it and only concentrate it on the other requirements. There are some cases in which the operator carry out the risk assessment and check that the level of risk is so high, there are no mitigation that can be put in place such that the operation can be classified in the specific category. So in this case, we call it certified category. So we don't have a clear boundary between specific and certified. It's based on the risk assessment. I will show you that there are some cases in which you already know that you will never fall in the specific category. But in general, only after you carry out risk assessment, you will know if the operation is so risky such that you need to go in the certified category. The certified category means that you need to have the full certificate of the drone, the certificate of the operator, and the license of the pilot, unless it is fully autonomous. So, as I told you before, one of the basic principles is that all authorization, all certificate that is provided by one member state needs to be recognized also in the other member state. So what will happen if there is a cross-border operation? So maybe an operation that is flying between the border of two states or completely in another member state. So first of all, let's see the case of authorization. So operation authorization, they will be, so first of all, the operator needs to ask to their competent authority the authorization to conduct an operation. When you will ask for an authorization, you in the risk assessment, you will identify you will characterize the area where you are flying in terms of ground risk and in terms of air risk. For example, you will say that I do it in operation in an area that is sparsely populated, in uncontrolled space or in controlled space. So you characterize what is the air and the ground risk, and then you carry out the risk assessment, and you find that maybe you will have some mitigations in order to reduce the involvement or the exposition of the overflown people, like in the picture, by concentrating most of the flight, for example, over a river, is an example. So this will be some tactical mitigation. So the risk assessment will provide you the full mitigation measures, and then there will be some tactical mitigation that will be linked to the area of operation. So you ask for authorization from the competent authority, and then the competent authority give you the authorization. So the competent authority of your place of registration. Then tomorrow, I want to conduct the operation in another state. So tomorrow I want to conduct the same operation in another member state. In this case, I don't need to resubmit the full risk assessment because the level of mitigations was already approved by my member state. The only thing I need to show is that the way I'm implementing the tactical mitigation in the nation are still valid. So, for example, I may not have the same configuration of the of the city, so I may not be able to conduct the full operation over a river, for example. So I need to change my mitigation strategy. So the only thing that I will show to the competent authority of the member state of registration is a copy of the authorization that I received from the member state of registration, plus the location where I want to do the operation, and how my mitigation measures has been adapted to the area, to that area. So there will be not again the verification of if the full risk assessment was conducted in a proper way. It's not their business. It's only to check that maybe in the area where I'm flying over people, I'm still flying in an area where the exposition of risk to the people is still low as it was in the original authorization. This is the only thing. So really minimum additional check from the competent authority or member state of operation, and you need to be able to reuse as much as possible all the authorization that you received in your member state of registration. Regarding instead, if you are conducting an operation under a standard scenario, so in a standard scenario, there is in any way no authorization by the competent authority, but you just have, you submit the declaration and you receive the confirmation of receipt and completeness by your competent authority. So if you want to do then in another member state, you just inform the member states that you are doing the operation in their state by providing a copy of the declaration and a copy of the confirmation that you had from your member state. Nothing else. And then you can operate in the other member state. Now, I remind you that you still, in general, also in the specific category, you need to check if there are some geographical zones, if there are some additional requirements that are imposed by the member state, but it's valid everywhere for the open specific. Even if with my small drone I want to fly for leisure in another country, I still need to check if there are some additional requirements or some forbidden area, or where I need to have a special authorization to fly somewhere. This is all over valid anyway. Okay, a third possibility is the light UAS operator certificate. What is this one? We call it the look. This is an option for the remote, for the operator. We allow that the operator will ask to the competent authority that they assess the structure. They assess that they have a structure such that is able to assess the risk of an operation. And we have some requirements. These requirements are based on safety management system, SMS, that now is very popular in not only the aviation but almost everywhere. And we call it light UAS operator certificate because it's a light version of the SMS. Not because it's a light aircraft, no, it's only meaning that it's the light requirements of the SMS. So they then ask to the NAF registration to inspect themselves. The NAF registration will verify. And when they are satisfied with the way they are structured, they can provide privileges. So we can have different kinds of privileges based on the maturity of the operator. So for example, operate according to the standard scenario without submitting declaration. This will be, I think, the most basic privilege. But then self-authorized operation according to Predefined risk assessment, or even self-authorized operation for which there was no assessment before, so it's a completely new operation. But then if the operator has good procedures, yeah, he can just conduct the operations, and still all operator in the specific category then will go under the oversight of the competent authority. So then the competent authority periodically, in a what we call in a performance-based approach, will inspect all operator that submit declaration or for which they issue an authorization or a certificate. They will be inspected regularly to check that they are conducting operation according to the regulation. So it can happen the day after if they believe that there is any reason to be much worried, or can happen after 1 year, or when the member state, the NIA, thinks that is meaningful. Okay. Yeah, and it's important also in this case, a look that is valid in a member state will be valid as it is with the same privileges without additional demonstrations. The only thing that we ask you is when you are flying in another member state to inform where the operation will be taken, is more to give an information to the state of what are the drone operations that are conducted. So, in summary, let's see what is a specific category. We have 4 possible options. So the first option is to conduct the SORA, conduct the full risk assessment. SORA is the MC to the regulation, and it's called MC1 to Article 11. And then identify all mitigation measures, how you comply with the operational safety objective, ask for an authorization to the competent authority, and then only after that you receive the authorization, you can start the operation. The second methodology, if the operation is covered by predefined risk assessment, instead of carrying out the SORA, you can just follow the predefined risk assessment. In this case, will be the first one is MC2 to the Article 11. The third one will be MC3. Then we'll have MC4 and so on. And then also in this case, you ask for an authorization to the competent authority, and you start the operation only after you receive the authorization from the competent authority. The third possibility will be the standard scenario. So standard scenario, in this case, is an appendix, is not an MC2 regulation. And so if your operation exactly follow the limitation that are in the standard scenario, then you can just send a declaration to the competent authority and start directly the operation. Or the last way is you ask the competent authority to be recognized as LUC, Light US Operator Certificate, and all the requirements are in the Part C to the Regulation 947. And then you can have the privileges that I showed you before. And then directly you start the operation without asking the authorization if the privilege that are given by your competent authority allow you to do. So you can see that you have quite a flexible way, and you can adapt to your need. Timeline. So starting from the 1st of July 2020, the specific category will be fully applicable. So this means that when you want to do an operation, you need to do what I just showed you. So carry out the risk assessment, ask for authorization to the competent authority, and receive an authorization. So the national regulation will cease to take effect from the 1st of July 2020, and only the European regulation will be applicable. There is no additional need for the member state to make it applicable. It's directly applicable. So what will happen is that we already have the first predefined risk assessment. As I can show you, both standard scenario and defined risk assessment, the color will become darker, because little by little we will have a number of predefined risk assessment, a number of standard scenario that will cover several operations. Now, for the standard scenario, at this moment we don't have any additional plan because we want first to get some experience. So we are not planning to publish any additional standard scenario immediately now. We would start to develop a large number of predefined risk assessment. As soon as we see that some operations are conducted in a safe way, then we can transform a predefined risk assessment in a standard scenario, but only when we gain, all of us, we gain experience. And, finished. Well, okay, I think there was another slide before. Okay. Yeah. And so you already have today some authorization, or okay, you already have some authorization, certificate, declaration that has been issued by your competent authority based on national regulation. So all this will still be applicable until 2021. So this means that by that date, the member states need to define what will be the conversion of all these certificates according to the European regulation. And then by that date, everything should be converted according to European regulation. And also by 2021, the member state needs to complete the definition of geographical zones. Actually, they are already working since several months, and I think that this will be defined already much before that date, because it will be important for all of you to know where you can fly, where you cannot fly. Okay, so this is the part on the specific category.
Okay, thank you very much, Natale. Now, možemo dobiti pitanja na screen i sortirati ih po sviđanjima. Dobro, ovo prvo se meni sviđa najviše, iako mislim da je osoba koja je postavila pitanje nije baš jasna, ali probat ćemo razjasniti. Dobro, ići ćemo na ručak, u redu. Samo daš ovo. Okay, if CCAA doesn't authorize an entity to issue approvals for declarations for standard scenarios, ja mislim da je tu nekakva pogreška, jel? And an operator can't do it himself, who will issue the first approval for standard scenario? Natale, I think that the question is a kind of misleading, because I think that the person meant that the competent authority will not authorize declared training organizations, which will be by declaration authorized to provide training for standard scenarios. You know, the second declaration that you had on the screen. I believe that's the question, because this question really doesn't make sense to me. I don't know.
Yeah, so standard scenario said that it will be based on declaration, so there will be no approval by the NAA. So what we need, is another operator that will be able to train. But also, this will be based on a declaration. So if I am an operator that is able to train that is able to show compliance, that to the appendix, I think it's appendix 3 to the regulation, defining what are the requirements for an operator such that he can train other operator, then there is no additional involvement from the competent authority. Now, the problem will be for the first time, because at the end, so first of all, we are starting the operation, and for the first time we need to have an operator that is trained. In order to start training other operator, you already need to have declared to understand standard number 1. So so this is something that I think with all other authority, we will identify one entity that is able to provide at least the first training, or the training at beginning. There will be some sort of school, or then it will be up to the member state to define who will be in place. Because we say in the regulation, the operator or an entity recognized by the member state. So it's clear that at the beginning can only be an entity recognized by the member state to do the first training. So when the first operator then is trained, then he can declare compliance with the standard scenario, and he can start training the other one. But at the beginning, we need to identify at least one organization, one entity able to do.
Dobro, evo, odlična poslovna prilika za nekog od vas. Dakle, trebamo trening organizaciju koja će prva osposobljavati pilote u standardnim scenarijima. Da vidimo, idemo dalje. What about unplanned situations? Say we are regularly flying up to 120 meters, but a specific shooting requires 200 meters. Would this mean that we would need to upgrade to the higher sea level Or would such activity be possible as an exemption?
So the example for me is not unplanned, because unplanned means that it's an emergency. So maybe there is a problem on the aircraft and for some reason goes up. So was something that was not planned. In this case, if there is a shooting that requires 200 meters, means that I know that I need to do a shooting requiring 200 meters. So it's planned. But anyway, in the specific category, we don't have any limitation. I didn't tell you that there is a limitation in height. So it's the open category is 120 meters. In the specific category, then you will tell me that in your authorization, you will ask to fly up to 200 meters. That means that you will enter in an area where there is a probability that there are other manned aircraft. So this means that we'll change the sail level, so the level of risk, means that you need to have some additional mitigation, a different way to comply with the operational safety objective. You need to demonstrate to your competent authority that you are able to cope with them, and then you will receive an authorization. But if you receive an authorization to 200 meters, and during the flight come out that you need to go to 250, then no, you cannot do it. You cannot go to 250. You need to ask for, you need to do the risk assessment and check if with your mitigation you are still safe up to 250, and then competent authority need to authorize you to go at that place. So unplanned is, so this kind of unplanned, so you need to plan properly what kind of operation you want to do. So it's better that you ask for authorization to the maximum height in this case, that you know that sooner or later you will be required to shoot.
Okay, thank you. Samo da ne zaboravim, u stvari, drago mi je da je Natale malo elaborirao po onom luku, Light UAS Operator Certificate, i da je bio potpuno jasan u tome da se radi o, da tako kažemo, umanjenim zahtjevima za nekog da bi dobio certifikat, a ne o certifikatu operatora laganog zrakoplova. Vidjet ćete kada budete čitali uredbu, a siguran sam da ćete nakon ovoga svi pojuriti da to podhitno pročitate, da vam je prijevod je upravo kontra. Kad dođete na luk tamo vidjet ćete da piše certifikat operatora lakog zrakoplova, što je potpuno promašen prijevod. Dakle, radi se o, da tako kažemo, laganom certifikatu operatora zrakoplova, zato što nema takve strašne zahtjeve kakve inače certifikacija podrazumijeva. Evo, samo taj clarification mali. This seems too complex administration for average common user to understand and needs to be simplified when educational pre-testing modules will be developed by NAA. I need to admit that I share that opinion, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that for the first time you are exposed to this kind of concept. Yeah, it's a little bit different from the normal approach. So can appear to be a little bit complicated, but there is always a matter of balance between flexibility on the other side and level of complexity, because it will be very easy to say, okay, this is the way you need to do, and then you don't have any room for changing. Then it will be very easy to understand, but very difficult then to you to do something different. We need to remember that here we have operation, we are talking about small drones that may do some kind of filming event, or we can consider larger drones that are doing some kind of spraying over country, or some other drones, large drones that are doing surveillance in area maybe over the sea. So the risk is very different. A 2-kilo drone over a stadium will be maybe a specific category, high risk. A 100 drone doing some kind of checking over the sea will be a low risk category, even if both are in the specific category. So we need to make sure that we have some kind of flexibility to help you to adapt the way you want to mitigate an operation in a way that will not be too much expensive for you. You don't need to do something that at the end is not needed, only because it's written in the regulation that you need to have this kind of skill. The skills are different based on what are the real needs. So this is why we have this the SORA. The SORA is a really powerful tool that will allow you to identify what are the minimum skills that you need to have, especially for the pilot competency. Then we expect that in the future, as soon as we'll grow some kind of experience, there will be a sort of modules that will be applicable to type of operations. So schools will start to make available some kind of modules that will be good for operation, for example, SAIL 2, conducted in some way. And then we will build this kind of model little by little. But it's something that we need to grow all together. And it will be very important to receive the feedback from you, receive the experience. And I think it will be also very important for you to start using it, because then you will see that also from the feedback that you receive from some kind of operator, that is a very powerful tool that as soon as you pass this first bridge, that's okay, it's new, I don't understand, it's complicated, but then you see how it is flow, and really you see the benefit to adapt to your need.
Thank you. My concern, Natalia, is, and I expressed it on several occasions in EASA and in European Commission, is our targeted population.
Yeah.
We are not dealing anymore here with aviation professionals, nor with legal professionals. And then, to me personally, this concept of this new regulation might be quite challenging for them to take a grip on. But that's just my opinion. Okay, so let's move on. Does CAA give authorization to UAS operator to fly in controlled airspace? U Hrvatskoj znate i sami da to nismo mi, to je kontrola leta. Ne bi previše dužio o tome jer imam dojam da se svi vrlo dobro s time upoznati. Would any additional safety equipment placed on the drone levy the limitations where it can fly? Surely an example, Inspire 2 with a compatible camera isn't as safe as it would be equipped with a certified independent parachute system, prop guards, etc. Why wouldn't it be possible to use a much safer drone variant equipment to fly closer to the people, buildings, etc.? Or what about the drones with RTK capability?
What is RTK? Real time? Okay. So in the specific category, we don't have any technical requirements that we mandate. We only have for the open category or for the standard scenario where we are very strict. For the specific category, after the risk assessment, you can levy on whatever technical requirements you think it will be useful to support, to mitigate your operation. So yeah, for sure that then if you have a drone with already some very nice features and you can use it, you can demonstrate that your drone is these features are working on your drone with the competent authority, and this will help you to reduce maybe the pilot competency, maybe to reduce the number of operational limitations to put on the operation. On the other side, if you have a drone it is very basic, then this means that you need to have additional operational requirements or additional pilot skill. So for sure, the powerful of the specific category is that a priori we don't specify any requirement. So we try to help you with standard scenario predefined risk assessment, give you some possible way in such that if you don't want to carry out the full risk assessment, you want to follow the recipe. But otherwise, if you think that this recipe is not fitting your need and you have a different mindset, feel free. So you are able to propose any kind of alternative requirements and levy on all kind of features. They are not only on the drones that are here in the Inspire, so something that is on the market, but you can also build your own drone that is having some special functions that is really adapted to your need. And you can propose to the competent authority that with these drones you can reduce the number of operational limitations that you put on the operation.
Thank you. When regulator is led only by fear, masked behind the word safety, it can only provide such a complex regulation. A lot of references, cross-references, and abbreviations for the community whose background is not aviation industry. Okay, this is a reflection to our previous comment, so obviously I'm not alone. I'm happy for that. So
yeah, but I want to just add something here. We know that one of the most important things is also the public perception. So we need to make sure that the society will accept operation on drones. And I can tell you that during these 3 years that we were developing the regulation, we had discussion with different member states, and in some cases there are different pressure in the member state where there are some where the public perception of drones is very negative, other one instead the public perception is very positive. So we need to define a regulation that give the perception that the operations are safe and actually makes the operation safe also, because we all know that the first time there will be a catastrophic event with a drone and some people will die, all industry will put into question. So for us it was very important to make sure that we develop something that we can justify, something that we can tell, not only for you are using drones, you know that, I have also a drone, I know that flying a drone for me is one of the most safest things because I know how to do it, they are very more reliable, but when you talk to people that never saw a drone and just see a drone flying over their head, they see as a threat. So we need to make sure that from a safety, but also from a privacy point of view, they feel protected. So we try to make something that is meaningful for them, but also we want to make sure that we are not put all the burden on the operator that then needs to have very expensive operation. So this is why we try to make it as flexible as we can.
Okay, and another question about two-way radio communication on airports. Imamo nekoga iz kontrole leta ovdje možda ko bi mogao odgovoriti na ovo pitanje. Evo, želite molim vas podijeliti s nama kako dakle piloti bespilotnih zrakoplova mogu komunicirati sa tornjem i uklopiti se u aerodromske aktivnosti. Da, dobro, ovo nije to. Ok, samo bih vas htio upozoriti da ovo što pričamo izvan mikrofona da se ne čuje online, pa možda ako želi neko nešto reći slobodno, evo doneću ja mikrofon, ali evo ima i kolega mikrofon. Evo samo sekundu, dat ću kolega, budite vi to da ja ne pogrešim. Čekaj samo malo da se porihtaju. Evo, izvolite.
Well, to explain how we did let's say, aerial works by UAS operators at controlled aerodromes. They had to file a request via AMC portal in Croatia, and we as ANSP gave them authorization. After operator gets consent from the aerodrome operator, sends it to ANSP, then ANSP gives additional to aerodrome operators' requests, our requests, and they were basically to conduct operations when there are no other manned aircraft operations at the airport, to be followed by airport personnel, and that airport personnel would have to communicate with tower. That was basically our request. And also sometimes telephone communication if this radio communication could not be applied.
Ok, hvala lijepo. Idemo dalje. Although being complicated, most of us will follow the regulations, and still we will have third country tourists flying their unmarked drones in no-fly areas.
So this will require a lot of activity on safety promotions, and we already started, actually NA already are doing safety promotion since years, but we are starting in EASA to coordinate the safety promotion activity to make sure that everybody are aware of what are the regulations in the area where you are flying. So like today, if you are flying to US, you know that there are some regulations you need to follow. What we will do is we will have some kind of information at the airports, and we will make sure that as much as possible everybody will be aware that also people from third country when coming here they need to comply with the regulation. This will be something that we need to do anyway, because you know that when you are going to somewhere else, you need to be aware of what are the regulations that are applicable, not only for drones, for also other areas. So now, I'm sorry that you perceive this regulation too complicated. We are trying to make it as simple as they are, so we are trying to present to all operators to show that at the end, if you're concentrating only on one operator, if you know what is your operation, so you know in which kind of category you will fit, then you don't need to have a complete overview of the open specific, what you do in one case, in another case. You just need to know the requirements that are related to the category of the operation in which you are flying.
Dobro, ovdje vidim nekoliko pitanja koje se tiču u principu jedne te iste tematike, a to je provedba ovih propisa. Dakle, prvo smo imali ove turiste iz trećih zemalja, pa onda vidim da je sljedeće pitanje cross border operations, gdje operator radi neke letačke operacije u zemlji koja mu to nije odobrila i tako dalje. Sve su to stvari koje se prepuštaju enforcement alatima svake od zemlje. Sad kako koja to uspijeva pohvatati i procesuirati, to je različito od zemlje do zemlje. Tako da nemamo tu nekakvih odgovora tipa crno-bijelo, jednostavno svako nadležno tijelo u svojoj zemlji pokušava provoditi propis, neke to rade više uspješno, neke manje uspješno. Ono što svi trebamo znati, a to je da propisi se rade, su namijenjeni onim ljudima koji ih žele poštovati, a uvijek će biti ljudi koji ih ne žele poštovati. I na cesti se vozimo danas automobilima svojim, pa nisam siguran da se baš svi vozimo po ograničenjima brzine koje su na znakovima. To je tako, jednostavno u ljudskoj prirodi uvijek ima ljudi koji će kršiti propise iz ovih ili onih razloga. Ok, da vidimo, radit ćemo do 15, dakle još 5 minuta. Krivi prijevod dokumenta na hrvatski, molimo dajte nam dokument na engleskom, dobro, i to možemo, inače sve uredbe, Aha, ok, da, ona je bila veliko pitanje za hollywoodske produkcije, dobro, tu smo. Professional team have specific jobs. Question is, drone is 25 kilos, big production, example Hollywood set, we need to fly in city. Set is closed, number or statists and actors on set can be 50 plus. Everybody is aware and was briefed with drone safety and rules. How and what category does this apply to? Flying close or over people? Flying close to buildings? What changes if the drone is 35 kilos due to larger camera setup?
So, in this case, we need to understand if the people that are there can be considered involved or uninvolved people. So the first question, first of all, are they aware of what are the procedures? Maybe yes, because then you can tell them. Can they follow the procedures? So this means that in order to follow the procedures, I need to see where the aircraft is flying and make sure that if I see that there is some misbehavior, I can move it. I don't know if this is compatible with their work, because it's a set, so I guess that they need to concentrate on what they are doing, so they cannot check that the aircraft is flying over their head. So in this case, I don't think that they will be able to follow the procedure. So it will be up to you to demonstrate, so make sure that you can demonstrate that people, so not only are aware of the procedures and give you the consent, but are also able to follow the procedure. So they are not doing something else for which their activity is incompatible with following the procedure. So once you identify if these people are involved or not involved, then you can see if they are in the open and specific. So if they are involved people, so you think that they can still follow the procedures, you can do this operation. You need to fly in city, so if the city is empty, because if it's just a set where there are only actor and no one else, okay, but no, if you demonstrate that it's an area where there is no one, then you can be in the open category. But otherwise, then this will be a little bit more difficult if it's in a city environment. I think that most probably this operation will fall into the specific category. So because these people will be considered as uninvolved people, and also if the drone is more than 35 kilos, for sure will be in the specific category. It is no way that you can escape. So this means that you need to carry out a risk assessment, or maybe is covered by a standard scenario. For example, the 25 kilos, even if it's to fly in the city, if you demonstrate that these people are involved people, for sure will be able to fall in the standard scenario number 1, because it's up to 25 kilos. So being in the city or not, either is open or standard scenario number 1 at the end is just declaration. Is not a big burden for you. So you can do the same. The problem is that you need to demonstrate that they are able to cope with the procedures to make sure that they can run away in case there is a misbehavior of the aircraft.
Dobro, možete još malo scrollat dole da vidimo, ovo smo odgovorili. Još jedno ćemo sad, zadnje. How many professionals have been involved in creating those? Okay, how many professional drone pilots have been involved in creating these rules?
Yeah, so we had a very complex project, because in 2015 we published a first document, was an advanced notice of proposed amendment, in which we just described the concept, and we asked everybody to provide comments. So everybody was able to, so private citizens was able to provide comments. Then in 2016 we published what we call the prototype regulation, to put on paper or something that in the previous document was just a concept, to give an information to what we had in mind, and also in this case everybody was able to provide comments, and we received a lot of comments from everybody. Then we started a group made of several European level UAS operator association. So these are like UVSI, International UVSI, like Drone Alliance Europe and other operator. So these are very large associations that have as members operators from all over Europe. We included also manufacturers, we included the member states, and we also included people coming from the aviation, the manned aviation, including also ANSP, so to make sure that we could see the regulation from all perspectives. We were around 20-25 people working on it. We had several meetings in IASA, and at the end we published in 2017 an NPA, Notice of Proposed Amendment, in which we described in quite good detail the regulation, we including as an appendix the proposal, the actual proposal of the regulation, and also there was an impact assessment identifying what is the impact on the regulation from an economic point of view, societal point of view, environmental point of view, and proportionality point of view. Also, this document was open to public, so everybody could provide their comments. We received 3,600 comments. So we reviewed it, and we made changes based on their comments. So we reviewed one by one all the comments. And also using, again, this group that I mentioned before, we identify how to address the comments and how to modify the regulation. So only after then we address all the comments, we published the proposal to the European Commission in the form of the opinion, in the form of the draft text proposed to be discussed within the member state. So this means that there was quite a large involvement directly, and in addition we did a workshop in Cologne before the publication of the opinion, where around 300 people, and was open to all kinds of organizations in Europe. So also in that case, we were able to receive their feedback. So really, we try to listen as much as possible to what is the need of all involved stakeholders, and also including the model